Do you have any familiarity with the proverb that states, "A bird in hand is worth two in the bush"? If I were to tell you that a bird in your hand is worthless in comparison to the bird that is in the hands of God, what would you say? You may nod your head in agreement, but when you are confronted with obstacles in real life, do you continue to cling to this belief? When you lose the job that you believed was the finest thing that could ever happen to you, what happens? In the event that the individual whom you had considered to be a God-sent partner decides to end their relationship, are you still able to have faith that what God has in store for you is superior to what you have lost? We are going to go into this issue and discuss how you can get to a position where you are experiencing the finest that God has to give in this video with you. It's possible that you feel like you already own the finest, and that nothing can top it. It is vital that you do not set up your tent in Egypt when God means to take you to a place that is abundant with milk and honey. Contentment is a pleasant feeling, but it is essential that you do not do so. You need to know how to get there, as well as the measures that you need to follow. Together, let's investigate these topics. Please click the subscribe button if you haven't already done so before we move on. I am grateful to you. What is your memory of the journey that Jacob and his family took to Egypt? At the time of the famine, the fact that they discovered food there allowed them to make amends with their brother Joseph, and they took their entire family to each of them. Before making the transfer, Jacob sought God's direction, and with his consent, they were looking forward to a land that would be bountiful with food. They were granted the best section of the kingdom as a result of Pharaoh's esteem for Joseph, and hence the children of Israel believed that they had it all figured out for the rest of their lives. On the other hand, they made Egypt their permanent home, in spite of the fact that it was only intended to be their home. In spite of the fact that God planned a location for them that was abundant with milk and honey, they were so accustomed to living in Egypt that they failed to see God's plan. In a nutshell, when a new Pharaoh came into power and treated them like slaves, they came to the realization that they had never been intended to be in that location in the first place. Despite the fact that it was merely a brief stop on the way to your blessings, there are instances when you start to feel at ease in a location and decide to make it your permanent residence. People have a tendency to favor comfort and security, and they are resistant to moving to a location that God has deemed to be significantly superior to where they are now located. When angels alerted Lot of the imminent destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, he was confronted with a situation that was quite similar to this one. However, he was hesitant. What would you think about that? Having been in circumstances when God has directed you to move into a new enterprise or embrace the unfamiliar, abandoning the known for the unknown, you can most certainly put yourself in the same position as the person who is reading this. It is possible that your initial reaction is similar to Lot's doubt. It is difficult for you to comprehend why God would interfere with your life that is so established. It would have been wonderful if you had known that God was rescuing you from an impending threat and moving you to a more favorable location. Isaiah 43 verse 19 gives the following declaration from God: "See, I am doing a new thing now. This thing emerges. Have you failed to recognize it? Streams are being created in the barren, and I am building a passage through the desert." One of the numerous promises that may be found in the scriptures is this particular one. It gives the impression that there is something historical, such as a previous achievement or circumstance. You have been placed in a certain location by God, and He is now encouraging you to let go of the past because He is going to do something totally different. The past will not be a reflection of this new entity. It is going to be far superior, substantially larger, and significantly more satisfying. But if you continue to cling to the old, you will never be able to understand this new thing. It is said in the Bible that one should not put new wine in old containers. Do you believe that God would use the old to create something new? There is no way that God will ever take anything away from you or ask you to let go of something without the intention of replacing it with something more beneficial. In the event that things did not go according to your expectations, it is God's way of letting you know that I have something far more wonderful in store for you. Sometimes it is vital to take a moment to halt and think about the things that God has done for you in the past. It is also important to remind yourself that if He has done anything for you in the past, He is able to do it again. For the sake of demonstrating what He has in store for your future, here is yet another promise from God. The number of humans and animals that live on you will rise, and they will have more offspring and become more numerous as a result of my efforts. I will bring people to you exactly as they were in the past, and I will bring you more prosperity than you ever have before. It will then become clear to you that I am the Lord. It's possible that you're experiencing the sting of disappointments coming from around every corner. You may feel like your life is finished because of the anguish you are experiencing, and there is little chance that anything positive will come your way. Things that you had hoped would work out have fallen apart. The fact that God has something better in store for you is something that you ought to comprehend. One's suffering is not the conclusion of their tale. Your life is still in the process of unfolding, and what comes ahead is not even close to being as good as what has come before. Undoubtedly, it is possible that you may find it challenging to accept this. You may find yourself in a scenario that is comparable to the one that Ruth and Orpah encountered when they were standing in front of their mother-in-law, Naomi. The sorrow of infertility, the loss of their father-in-laws, and the death of their spouses were just some of the things that these young ladies had seen and experienced in their lives. Whether they chose to return to a life that was characterized by shame among their people or to embrace a life of stigma among strangers, the alternatives that were presented to them were overwhelming. The social stigma associated with their disease followed them wherever they went. Ruth was in a dismal situation, but she saw a glimmer of hope and made the decision to pursue the road that God had laid out for her. She was apprehensive about the future, but she had faith that the adventure she was taking with God would bring her to the finest possible destination. It was not only the decision to accompany Naomi that resulted in the settlement of her marriage, but it also resulted in her becoming the great-grandmother of Jesus. Her name is named among the 4 women referenced in the Bible when it chronicles the genealogy of Jesus, which is a remarkable achievement. The splendor that comes with choosing the way of God is as described above. It is possible that God will direct you towards something better without requiring you to give up what you now have. With that being said, in order to really embrace this improvement, you might have to let go of something that you are now clinging to. The act of letting go can be challenging, particularly when one's faith in God is in question. On the other hand, once you do end up doing it, you won't ever regret it. It is possible that you will ask God for anything, but it may appear that your prayers are being ignored by Him at these times. You might be perplexed as to why a God who is both nice and caring might appear to disregard you. When you find yourself in such a situation, it is important to keep in mind that the thing you are requesting can be something like dessert when God has a full-course meal prepared for you. Put your faith in Him, and even when He is silent, know that He is carefully arranging everything for your benefit. It is important to keep in mind that even when all is quiet, God is still working on your side. Due to the fact that God takes pleasure in revealing surprises, He will not provide the complete image or vision of what He has in store for you. In the event that God removes something unexpected from your life, you may have peace of mind knowing that He is able to replace it with something that you never planned to acquire. In light of this, what steps can you do to get yourself ready to receive the better things that God has plans for you? The act of letting go is unquestionably challenging, regardless of whether or not you are a believer. As God asks you to let go of your goals, let go of a relationship, or leave a career that you believed was the finest, it may sound like an unrealistic thing to do. Your mind is flooded with questions. How am I supposed to leave this work if I have not yet received a job offer elsewhere? Without having any idea what is ahead for me in the new city, how can I possibly relocate there? It is possible that these doubts will prevent you from submitting to the counsel of God. On the other hand, if you are hesitant to let go, you will not be able to accept what God has in store for you. Do whatever it is that He urges you to do. Possibly this instruction will ring a bell. In the Bible, it is written, "Take into consideration the wedding that took place in Cana of Galilee, when Jesus, at the beginning of His career, transformed water into wine. According to Mary, His mother, the servants should carry out everything He instructs them to do. To go beyond simple obedience, the slaves were required to give up their understanding of the process of producing wine and instead follow the unusual directions that Jesus gave them. The act of trusting one another and letting go of their traditional knowledge was demonstrated by this. Despite the fact that they were putting their employment in jeopardy by filling jars with water rather than wine, they followed Jesus' instructions. In a similar vein, you could be very attached to your career or your relationship, but God may encourage you to let go of it, assuring you that He has something more worthy of your attention. Most of the time, in order to accept the finest that God has to offer, you must first let go of what you believe you already own. When you let go of something, your hands become free to accept what God has in store for you after you have done so. In order to let go, one must be willing to deviate from the traditional route in order to listen to the voice of Jesus. To do so means to engage in behaviors that may appear to be humanly dumb and irrational, all in the service of enabling Jesus to have His way. From the moment you adopt this frame of mind, your life will be marked by something that is superior in every way. Please have a look at what transpired at the wedding after the wine was served by the servant. The person in charge of the ceremony reprimanded the host for delaying the opening of the nice wine till later. The fact that Jesus had touched water was not something he was aware of. When you let go of your ideas that appear to be brilliant and instead align yourself with the plans that Jesus has for you, you put yourself in a position to continuously receive greater things from God. After you have made the decision to submit to the will of God, you should be ready to look dumb in front of other people because they might not comprehend your decision. Even you might find it difficult to come, but even in the midst of turmoil, you should always be ready to submit to the will of God. Trust in God. In the event that you do not have faith in the one who is directing you, letting go becomes an extremely difficult task. It was God who made the promise that He would do better for you than you had done in the beginning. The Bible assures in Jeremiah 29:11 that "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." He also declares in Isaiah 55:8-9, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." All of these promises demonstrate that what God has in store for you is superior to everything else in the world. All that is required of you is to put your faith in Him. Will you put your faith in the plans that God has put in place for you today? Were you able to bring your plans before God and have faith in what He has in store for you? When you trust God, you take the first step without seeing the entire road, just like Peter did when he stepped onto the sea in the midst of a roaring storm. Putting your faith in God might be difficult if you are not familiar with the written Word of God. Therefore, in order to rid your thoughts of fear and uncertainty, you need completely immerse yourself in the promises that God has made. Have faith that the things you can plan for yourself are unimportant in comparison to the things that God has in store for you. Having faith in Him implies having faith in His promises and having comprehension. God is loyal and will not let you down, regardless of the situation you find yourself in. Maintain a strong stance on His assurances, believing that they will undoubtedly be fulfilled. Make sure you are prepared to move. In many cases, the greater plan that God has for you will come with directions to carry out certain acts. It is impossible to remain in a state in which you are still lamenting the events of the past, expressing regret for the past, and pondering what could have been. And instead of obsessing on the past, have the expectation that you will be given something greater. Be ready to go forward in accordance with the direction that God imparts. An interesting perspective was offered by Paul in the Bible when he remarked, "But there is one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead." This is the key that will open the greater things that God has in store for you. In spite of the fact that Paul's ministry was fruitful and he made substantial contributions, he was aware of the fact that what God has not done is always superior than what He has undertaken. Make a proclamation to yourself that the best He has for me is not in the past. When you accept this idea, you take the initiative to put the past in the past and look forward with enthusiastic anticipation to the greater things that God has brought about in the future. Whether it be setbacks or accomplishments from the past, clinging to the past is a barrier to developing future momentum. You are not prepared for a future that is full of the better things that God has in store for you if all of the sources of glory and happiness that you have experienced exist in the past. You may not be prepared for the future that God has in store for you if you are always bemoaning your circumstances, expressing regret for the things that have happened in the past, and sitting in a position of self-pity. This is a genuine complaint. To what extent, however, do you intend to continue existing in that state? Now is the moment to take hold of God's hands, to accept His healing, and to go on into the magnificent future that He has planned for you. Never forget the promise that He made. The things that He has in store for you are beyond anything that could ever be seen, heard, or conceived by your eyes, ears, or hearts. In addition to this, He said that He will help you more in the later part of the journey than in the beginning. In spite of the fact that you may assume you have accomplished all triumphs, there is nothing that can compare to what God has in store for your future. Regardless of what the past has in store for you, the future has something better in store for you. It would be wonderful if you could let go of the past and be prepared to move forward. Make sure that you do not let your connection to the past prevent you from moving forward when God invites you to do so. For the sake of embracing the greater things that are waiting for you in the future, let go of what is behind you. Be prepared for the better thing that God is about to perform for you in the near future. It is not enough to just have faith in God and have faith that something new and better is on the horizon. In the absence of adequate preparation, even the act of surrendering and letting go of the past may not be sufficient. When it comes to accepting what God has in store for you, preparation is very necessary. Take a look at those servants from the chapter before this one. Despite the fact that they had no clue how Jesus would accomplish His goal, they prepared the jars in anticipation of the greater item that He would offer. It is important to acknowledge that the things that God is planning for you are more than what you presently possess, which is the reason why your existing capabilities could not be adequate. In order to receive the blessings that God has in store for you, you need to increase your capacity. Take your time. It is necessary for you to wait for God's timing if you want to have what God has planned for you. It is impossible to get God to follow your schedule. In order to receive the finest that God has to offer, one must first take the necessary time to prepare, heal, and get ready for the gift. A great number of individuals have given up waiting on God for the best that He has in store for them because they are impatient. There is no way to hurry God. In His own time, He bestows His favors. Most of the time, when you try to coerce God into providing the greatest on your timetable, you end up with something that is less than His best. Imagine that you are in the process of creating a delectable supper and a child is wailing for food. You may provide the child a brief snack in order to momentarily pacify them, but how much more would they have gotten if they had patiently waited for the entire dinner to be served? Wait for God, dearly beloved, until His intentions and promises are completely realized in your life. You should remember to exercise patience. He has the ability to go far and beyond anything that you could ever ask for. Because He is capable of doing it, you should let Him work in His own time. If you try to impose your timetable on Him, you will not be successful in the long term. You will be blessed with the entirety of His best for you if you have faith in His time. The plan that God has for you is superior and more abundant than anything that you could possibly imagine for yourself. You must be willing to let go of whatever it is that you are clinging to in order to be able to receive His benefits. Be sure to obey His voice. Get yourself ready for what is going to happen, and have patience as He waits for the right moment. Try not to get distracted or tired of waiting around. Have faith in the promises that God has made to you, and you will see the greater things that God has in store for you. Okay, let us pray now. Because of your goodness in my life, I am grateful to you, my Father. Because I am aware of the plans that I have for you, the Lord reveals that your word gives me assurance. Plans to bring you success rather than to bring you harm. This is a plan to offer you hope. Moreover, the future. All of my ideas are laid out in front of you, Father. It's not something I want to undertake on my own. I see that what you have in store for me is superior to anything that I have and could ever hope to put together for myself. Blessed be my mind. As you visit me with your heavenly presence, please assist me to believe your message. I need to work on my heart to comprehend that what you have for me is better than what I have for myself. Concerns my life. Take away the persistent anxiety that I feel in my heart and the worry that I have for the future. I am ready to receive everything that you have in store for me. Lord, I pray that your blessings will be bestowed upon me and encompass every aspect of my life, including my mind, spirit, soul, and body. Please remove whatever that has prevented me from receiving from you in the past. I am grateful for everything that you have in store for me with you. I need to open my eyes so that I can see the things that I am clinging to but that I need to let go of. Permit me to be granted the grace to let them go. I pray that your blessings will find a way to enter my life. Your blessings should be showered onto my family. Let the shower of abundance pour down upon us, so that we will not be lacking in anything that is good. I pray that you would give me the ability to wait patiently for your promises to come true. Be my source of strength whenever I feel myself beginning to tire out. You are my steadfast hope at times when hope is waning. While I am experiencing feelings of disorientation and confusion, let your gentle reminder to come through and demonstrate your love and concern for me. Give me the opportunity to feel the powerful sensation of your love here and now. When I am going through difficult times, show me the path out of problems, and when I am at a crossroads in my life, show me that you are the way. Find a way to get your voice heard. In my life, you are genuine and obvious. In the valley of decisions, please allow me to hear you very clearly. Please clear up any confusion that may be present in my life and direct me to remain at the center of your will at all times. Thank you, dear Father, for being the most wonderful Father that anyone could ever want to have. During this time of prayer, I am being grateful. I have faith that you have taken note of my requests and responded to them. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Thank you. Please respond by clicking the like button if you have been moved by this message. Remember to subscribe to this channel so that you can receive further messages imbued with soul.